Fresh meat.
I've never been shy about my adoration for 90s horror. It ain't the 80s, but viewed on its own terms, we got some classics, a good many underdogs, and a charm specific to the changing times. For this episode of The Black Sheep, I want to dive into a slasher that has basically been buried in the clutter of the streaming services of today. And when it debuted back when, it never got the fair shake it deserved. So let's go to the year of our Lord and 40 Ounces to Freedom, 1992, and talk shop about Dr. Giggles.
If you think that's bad, wait till you get my bill.
Now, I think the key to its failure is time. Following Halloween, or Black Christmas for the Canadians, we were on a steady incline of slashers that peaked around the mid-80s. This was the era of the big dogs. I'm talking Freddy, Jason, Chucky, but also smaller gems like My Bloody Valentine, Prom Night, Sleepaway Camp, The Burning, the list goes on. But you know what? With the start of the 90s, culture had shifted, and what was a fun exercise in exploitation was now seen as crass, shit, uncool. Now listen, this is just how the passage of time works. The younger generation dictates the rules, and it's just the way of the world. One-liners were now cheesy. I mean, listen, they always were, but that's why they were awesome.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
And the hammy plot points and overacting gave way to a serious era that just wasn't into it. Optimism gave way to reality. I mean, hell, grunge killed fun hair metal. The thing is that life is all about balance, and I personally love both sides. I love some serious horror, but damn, do I love the heart that the 80s wore on its sleeve. And Dr. Giggles was a relic by the time it came out in '92. Though purposely funny, it wasn't meta enough to wink at the audience, and took itself a bit too serious in its 80s style and tone, which just wasn't a hip thing. It was your dad's slasher, even if it was filtered through the Gen X perspective. Scream was 4 years away from revolutionizing the subgenre. Fast and witty dialogue, a crisp and polished picture, closely resembling the blockbusters at the time. And of course, a prominent PC culture sanitized the gore and made sure there wasn't a tit or man ass in sight. Prudent times, my friend, prudent times. But the beauty of time is that even a forgotten gem can find a new life once again. And today I'm gonna try and do just that. Shine a light on a slasher that I loved as a kid and found again as an adult, Dr. Giggles.
Have a heart!
Directed by Manny Coto, who's had a lot of success in the world of television, with Star Trek Enterprise, 24, and the 90s edition of The Outer Limits. Written by Coto and Graham Whiffler, Dr. Giggles tells the tale of Dr. Evan Rendell, Jr., a nutcase who escapes from a mental institution with the goal of murdering everyone that has the unfortunate luck of crossing his path. Now, Mr. Rendell Jr. goes by the sweet and lovable nickname Dr. Giggles. And he wants to help his townsfolk in the best possible way. Through cold-blooded murder, paired with enough medical puns and one-liners that if put to a drinking game, you die a swift death.
You are about to experience the cutting edge of medicine.
You'll catch your death of cold running around like this. I hope you have protection.
We are what we eat. He should have kept his hands to himself.
It's a good thing I make house calls.
I haven't discharged you!
Dr. Giggles works because of three simple things. It's a great and ridiculous origin story. Larry Drake is perfectly cast as the Doctor, and it's the perfect balance of absurd storytelling and 90s charm. So think of our Doctor in the same light as the big bads from the 80s. A rich backstory that sets up his character, ongoing motivation, and the need for multiple sequels. The year is 1967, and Dr. Evan Rendell and his young son are killing townsfolk on the down low, taking out people's hearts with the hope they can find a way to bring back their wife/mother. Now, after enough disappearances, the people of Moor High take matters into their own hands and stone the good doctor to death. Since one body isn't enough to feed the hungry mouth of vengeance, they go looking for the kid to fix as well. But he's nowhere to be found. Disappeared, never to be seen again. Now, how can a child evade the mob, police?
That was how Dr. Rendell got his son out of the house. He'd sewn him up in what was left of his wife's corpse.
Oh shit! Now that's how you set up a f***ing killer. Not only was Rendell Jr. never found, but later in life ends up in a nut house in his older years as a John Doe, and appropriately named Dr. Giggles. A good slasher origin story should go big and be somewhat absurd. Commit to the tale and never waver. As a movie, Dr. Giggles makes Rendell Jr. comically evil, and in its very nature, a fun and enjoyable killer. You basically root for him against the 30-year-olds playing teens. This wisely takes the dark humor route.
Visiting hours are over.
Unlike any great creation, his obsession with following in the footsteps of his dad's profession, along with a lust for a high body count, makes him the perfect candidate for a franchise killer. Like most slashers, a good chunk of these characters are one note. Holly Marie Combs does what she can, was a character who comes off spoiled and dramatic. Heart condition, man up. Yeah, we get it, you have a heart condition.
Might as well be fall. I can't do anything.
And Quinn's Max Anderson may be good looking, but he's kind of a douchebag. Also, how am I just noticing that Mark from Roseanne looks exactly like a young Gabriel Byrne? Weird. Larry Drake as Dr. Giggles is perfect casting and essentially carries this entire picture. That guy's a class act, an Emmy winner, and has the presence very few can match. The kind of actor that just has it.
Know what I mean?
He spends the entire running time killing with doctor gags and spitting out puns so thick, light cannot penetrate. You're really not supposed to be rooting for him, but you can't help but cheer the giggler on. And I'm happy to say the Doctor is in. Now, I caught Larry Drake as the murderous Santa Claus as a kid in that brilliant Tales from the Crypt episode, and he became immortalized in my young brain as Robert G. Durant.
We've come only for documents. Tell us where to find the Belisarius memorandum and we shall disappear. Like a nightmare before the breaking day.
So the man can embody a villain like no other. He plays Dr. Giggles with such a perfect balance of menace and dark humor that it's a criminal act that we didn't get a continuous stream of fun and wacky sequels. And also, it should be noted that Graham Whiffler's script was almost entirely rewritten into the goofier film you see today. His version did end up as a story for the 2005 flick Deadly End. So, all is well. Of course, there are a few issues, as Dr. Giggles is so bad it's good for the most part. The lack of gore and blood is a depressing trend of the 90s, and this falls victim to the self-censoring of that decade. Besides the amazing Larry Drake, the rest of the cast are on the weaker side of development, which for a slasher isn't too unusual, but it's a rough one here.
Swiped from my mom's suitcase before she and Dad left for vacation.
Holly does her best with the character Jennifer, but like the rest of them, not much depth or personality given. But Manny Cotto knows how absurd this premise is, and clearly has fun with the gimmicky concept. There's an energy here that breathes a distinct visual style. Look at the opening scene where the doctor is doing open heart surgery, only to find out he's not in a hospital. The great well-lit close-up is both odd and perfectly unnerving.
You win some, you lose some.
And we can't forget about the wild House of Mirrors scene.
It's outrules.
And the mouth POV shot with a tongue depressor.
No,
Such a cool practical effect. Cotto brings a dark sense of humor, and even though the time period couldn't quite shake the unintentional goofiness, it's clear that the movie is in on the joke, but still earnest enough to play it straight. By the great and wacky ending scene where Giggles kills his way through the hospital, to him actually breaking the fourth wall.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Dr. Giggles proved that there was life left in the silly and enthusiastic slasher subgenre. But like most things in life, it's all about timing. And since Giggles could have come back as an undead doctor with a healthy amount of medical puns, it's sad that time just wasn't on her side. Hey, thanks for watching our show. Please subscribe to our JoBlo Horror Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content. And turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. Listen, we're an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.